listen to me. I really need a sequel, like, right now. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am introducing a new series called Film Fridays, and basically what I'm doing with this is I'm going to watch a movie it revolves itself around a deaf character, a disabled character, and eventually I want to move on to like mental health or, eating disorders or whatever things that I can relate to. Right now, my goal is to have it happen every other Friday, so like 2 Fridays a month. But sometimes, I may run out of a movie or something. So we'll see how it goes, but right now I do have a few planned. They won't just be movies. I think I do also have a few TV shows in mind. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this series, and you might notice by the title or the thumbnail, we're going to talk about A Quiet Place, which has been a long time coming, but I just now saw it. A Quiet Place is about a family who you have, how many were there? Mom, dad, 2 boys, and 1 girl. So it was a family of 5, soon to be a family of 4, and all but 1, the teenage daughter, are hearing. And basically you've got monsters that are blind and they react to sound. So you gotta be very quiet. And yes, this is very similar to a novel called The Silence, which they were both made up and written or whatever at the exact same time, and people are trying to compare them. The difference is one has proper deaf representation and the other one will not, but when that comes out, we'll get more into detail about that. So I did not see this movie when it first came out because apparently it wasn't very accessible in theaters. I swear I saw some people not have proper access when they were watching it with the captive view. I can't remember if it was like ASL wasn't captioned or the speaking parts weren't captioned. And also when you watch the movie, I'm trying to remember exactly, not all the ASL is really shown properly in frames, which is something that really happens often with shows that have sign language in them, or movies as well. You've seen it with this, with Switched at Birth, and a whole lot of other things. So let's talk about The Quiet Place. A Quiet Place. So, like I mentioned, proper deaf representation and ASL, I could understand Millicent, who, by the way, is the deaf actor in the movie, sorry. Forgot to mention that. Woo, went by. The father, the mother, and the little brother, I can understand them pretty well. I mean, when people ask me, hey, how is the ASL in this? I'm not the person to ask. I'm not fluent. I didn't grow up with it. But I can understand what was going on in the movie when they signed without all the captions available. One scene in particular that got me so hard, and I almost screamed in the plane because I watched it for the first time on the plane. At one point in the movie, they're not allowed to have things that make noise. They're not allowed to make noise, and they're not allowed to have things that make noise. And the youngest kid really wanted a toy rocket, and it would have batteries inside, and when it was on, it would make noises, and it would light up. And so he wanted it, but his parents took it away because it was a risk. But the thing was, Millicent's character, when the parents left and the other brother left, she looks at her youngest brother, and she gives him the toy, but she gives it to him without batteries, and then she walks away. And what happens is, after she walks away, the little boy takes the batteries, and you know what's going to happen. It's the very beginning before the opening credits roll. It's so sad. Basically, you have the parents and the oldest son is being held because he's sick, and that's why they were out there getting medicine. Then you had Millicent's character. Then you had the little boy. Millicent is deaf. What is her name in the show? In the movie? Regan. I think it's Regan. Regan. She has a cochlear implant, but I don't think she actually has it on. I don't think she's wearing it because that's the whole thing that happens later. Eventually, they're walking back to their home, and all of a sudden, you can hear noises from a toy. The father stops. He's freaking out. His facial expression is just panic. He turns around. Everybody else is turning around. And then Regan realizes something is going on, because again, she can't hear it. And then when she turns around, she's stunned, but then the father is starting to run towards the little boy because he has the toy rocket and he put the batteries inside, and it's basically making a whole bunch of noise. And the father knows that is going to attract the monsters, and something bad is going to happen if they don't get to him in time and turn it off. Long story short, just before the father would have been able to reach the little boy, the monster comes and the boy is dead. So what comes into play is that what would have happened if, one, Regan was hearing, or if she was wearing her cochlear implant that she refuses to wear because she's convinced that it doesn't work and blah 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 blah. That's one question to ask. The other maybe solution would have been to, I think, maybe should have double checked, had the little boy out in front of her, because one, he is the youngest. He is going to be the most ignorant to what is going on because he looked to be about 4 years old, maybe, so he doesn't really understand what's going on. He's just a child. So yeah, what would have been helpful is that the little boy should have been in front of her, and she would have been able to double check that the batteries were not with him. So that's a very, very sad moment. And that makes her feel incredibly guilty for the rest of the movie, and she's very, very convinced that her father absolutely does not like her, and she thinks that it's all her fault, and it just becomes so sad because you don't see a whole lot of interaction with them. And if he's going to go out to go hunt for fish or whatever, he takes the oldest son, even though there are times when she wants to go with him, but he's basically saying no because she's deaf and she's not going to be able to hear what's going on. And then we get to the end of the movie when this made me cry on the plane, but they were being attacked by the monsters, Regan and her brother. The father sacrifices himself, otherwise the monster was gonna kill them because the monster was going after them in the truck that they were hiding in. And right before he's sacrificing himself, he tells her that he loves her and that she's not to blame, it's not her fault, and I wanted to cry so badly. And also there were times when he would try to convince her to wear the cochlear implant, and she refused, saying that it wasn't going to work, etc., etc. But there are times when she does wear the cochlear implant in the movie. I don't call cochlear implants miracle products. They are not. They will not magically make you hearing. In fact, getting a cochlear implant destroys any hearing you've ever had left. But dare I say that in this movie, in this case, in this scenario, it kept her alive, therefore being sort of a miracle product. But don't get it twisted, because this is not what happens in real life. And I already knew this is not what happens in real life, but somebody who is also a cochlear implant user messaged me on on Instagram, and gave me a little more background information, because it just needed to be told so that hearing people that were watching this that have no idea how CIs work, they needed to know that it doesn't work like this. But when Regan would wear the cochlear implant, there were times when she would be by herself. This was for a percentage in the movie. She was by herself and, trying to hide from these things. And she would be by herself in the middle of the cornfield or whatever. And there would be a monster sneaking up behind her. She's obviously not going to know. She's not going to hear it. And it's too dark, so it's not like you're going to see any shadows or anything. But the cochlear implant would make feedback, which was just something that the monsters hated and would make them go away because it was too painful for them. And it saved her life 2 or 3 times. Once while she was by herself in the field, and again when she and her brother were in this thing, I don't know what it was called, but they got stuck in something and the metal door was hanging off and it fell. The monsters heard it because it made a very loud bang. The monster was coming for them, and it was so close to killing them. But the implant reacted, gave off a whole bunch of feedback, and the monster didn't like it, and it ran off. And at the end of the movie, that's when they realized, the cochlear implant is the miracle product in this movie, and all they would have to do, at least for the last 2 minutes of the movie that you see, take the cochlear implant, have the microphone, put it next to each other, and it just extreme loud feedback. That's when the movie ends. But going back to what I said, it's not realistic, and the one thing that hearing people need to understand is, well, let's just read the message that I got, shall we? Because I want to get this 100% right. And the way to do that is to get the information from somebody who has these things. So they said that it was impossible for a cochlear implant to make audible noise, meaning the feedback that was happening. Hearing aids will create feedback, by the way. If you watch my wearing a hearing aid for the first time video, you hear the feedback that happens because I didn't have it in all the way. Cochlear implants don't do that. So the external processor isn't a microphone. It doesn't make noises like hearing aids. The external processor never makes the noise, and Jim's character adding crap to it would do literally nothing. In order to do anything to the external processor, you have to hook it up to a specific program on a computer, and the programs may be different for each brand. The external processor doesn't even get audio feedback. Some brands have a separate mini computer thing, I can't remember what it's called, that hearing parents can connect the processor to you to see if it works, but it's not noise. It's just a computer telling you if it's working. There is nothing even on the external processor that makes noise. So, there you go. So the reason why they may have gone through with this is just because Millicent herself, the actor herself, has a cochlear implant, so to them it may have just made more sense to just go with that. So in a way, I get it, but at the end of the day, it's important to know that that's just not how it works in real life. So if this somehow became a real life scenario, don't try that because it's not gonna work. Maybe use a hearing aid, but a cochlear implant is not gonna work. So don't implant your child thinking that that's how it's gonna be. Overall, it's a movie that I really enjoyed, and I'm very excited for the sequel to come out, and The Silence is going to come out eventually, and it's gonna be comparable to A Quiet Place, and the deaf community is gonna have a back and forth about it. I read the Silence novel. I read it a long time ago, and I actually really enjoyed the novel. So I am kind of excited to see how the movie pans out. But I know already that my thoughts are gonna kind of be, this is kind of inauthentic because the girl who plays Sabrina in the new Sabrina is playing the deaf girl. Again, different video for a different time, but that's kind of where we're at now. But now it's time for you to tell me what you thought about the movie. Again, overall, I enjoyed it very much. I do wish that we had more of a backstory between the father and Regan, because it seems like there was just more that needed to be told. You didn't really get a whole lot. Some things were just missing, but overall, I didn't hate it. And if you've got a movie that you want me to watch, or a show that you want me to watch that has a deaf or disabled character, let me know in the comments. I'm looking for suggestions because I want to keep this series going, but I already have a few in mind. We will have Hush, we will have Switched at Birth, and there's a couple of Asian stuff that I want to watch, or I've already seen Orange Days and Hear Me, so we'll talk about that. As always, I very much appreciate you watching, and I will see you later. Bye!